flip cam. You know, a little thing like this comes down here, has the capability of having the ability to quickly create your own videos. Again, 2 lenses, 3D flip cam. Of course, there's 3D camcorders. So here is a little 3D camcorder. Again, 2 little lenses. So these are the low-cost ones. By the way, this device here is about $150. This is under $100. This is about $300. Again, auto-stereoscopic. But that's not where the really exciting things are happening. Panasonic and Sony showed 3D camcorders. Now, Sony one's not available yet. Sony, you know, stands for soon, only not yet. So it's not there yet. But Panasonic is here. This is a 3D camera. It is a 3-chip camera, so it's a camcorder, so it's a fairly decent quality camcorder, full 1080, and this is a 3D lens on it, and it will shoot 3D. But even more fun is, this is the new GH2 camera. Some of you may be familiar with the G1. There's a GH1, and now there's a G2. And it's got a interchangeable lens camera. This is part of the new mirrorless cameras. You can take this lens off, though. That's one nice thing about it. And you can put this lens on here. And now I have a 3D single lens reflex camera. So I just put a 3D lens on this so you can create your own content. Now, 3D, of course, most of it, the secondary things I just showed, you really do need glasses. And so in the movie theater at home, what you're using are active shutter glasses. These are active shutter glasses. But if you go to the movie theater, you really would like to see something a little bit better. These are awful. They're plastic. They're no lenses. But what's happening is some people are now coming out with designer glasses. These are real glass, real glasses that really have high quality. They're more expensive. But if you want to go and enjoy a movie in its full quality, I highly recommend you get yourself a pair of these glasses. The company, this is Cybrex company. These are real optical folks, and this is a really nice 3D experience. It even has little lenses on the side, so if you're watching it in IMAX, you can see what's going on. Now, of course, when we're talking about cameras, they're not just 3D. So one of the things I found fun was this little device here. It's a very simple. Don't worry about this. This is the amount. But here is a little tripod, very lightweight. You can take it out, and it sets itself up like a tent, so it goes on here. Now you say, okay, that's kind of fun, but why would I want to do that? Well, I have here a little camera that can be added to this device here. I turn it on, and I turn this on, and this is a robotic camera. And as you can see, the camera is going to start to look around the room. Now this is using face detection. It's going to look around, look for a face, uses smile detection. When it finds a picture it wants to take of somebody, it will take your picture. Leave this at a party, it's great fun. Just let it sit somewhere, just set it all night long. It'll just take pictures randomly, and it'll sit there and work away. Of course, other people are looking for an ability to enjoy, they want to shoot things, and they're on a, for example, they might be on a roller coaster or something, and somebody said, wouldn't it be cool if I could have a system where, in fact, what's happening here is I have a camera that shoots forward. So there's a camera shooting forward, and there's a screen in the back. But there's a second camera on the back. So when you're taking a picture of yourself running around on the roller coaster or something, you can also get your reaction. It puts a window on here, so you get 2 pictures of yourself as you're shooting. Anyway, kind of crazy fun. And of course, if you want to have a point of view, you can always use this little device here, which is an over-the-ear camera, and it Bluetooths to your cell phone, so you can do live streaming as you are enjoying yourself running around. Now, of course, running around, there's some people like to do things outside. And when you do things outside, out here I noticed it's been near, we went through the Alps and we came down here. So I had this little device here, which is kind of interesting. This is a ski mask. It's a very actually good ski mask. Now the interesting thing about the ski mask is it actually, if you look here, it's actually lit up. The reason it's lit up is because this is an active ski mask. Now what is an active ski mask? Well, the first thing is, inside here, it's hard for you to see it, but inside here, there's an OLED display, a heads-up display. There's a GPS receiver in this mask. So as you're going down the mountain, it will be tracking all your altitude, your speed, the temperature, and all other things, giving you a display as you're going down the mountain or anywhere else you might be driving. So this is kind of interesting. But of course, that is your experience. And how would you like, you want to share that with somebody else. I have another device, which is this camera here. This is the Contour GPS camera, and it will sit on here on your helmet or wherever you want to do. This is a full HD camera. Now, notice this blue light flashing here. That's because it's Bluetooth connected, so I can actually set up the camera with my iPad Touch here. So I've got all the controls here. I can even look at it as I'm going. Now, you'll say, okay, that's cool, a camera, but there's one more trick to this. This also has GPS. So when you play this back, it has metadata that goes with it. So as you're going back, you can actually see a track of where you've been with your camera, whether you're going down the mountain. So not only can you experience it in your headset, in your goggles, but you can also, when you come home, see the whole thing flight coming out. Now, when you're out in the middle of nowhere in your mountains, it's kind of nice to know that if you get stuck somewhere, you may want to send a message. This is the Spot GPS. Now, the Spot GPS, so 3 GPS devices on me. This one, though, is a little bit different, because this receives GPS like everything else, but the other thing it does is it also transmits a signal back. So there's an emergency button here. I can press this, so no matter where I am in the world, this will actually transmit up the satellite, send a GPS message, and say, we have a problem or whatever, or I can just check in and say, I'm fine. Now, of course, if you're not into the traveling in the snow and all the rest, you can also, if you like the summer, here's an iPod case, or any phone case. It happens to have a Windows mobile phone in it right now. But what's interesting about this, it's waterproof, but it has a little buoy. If this goes in the water, this buoy explodes, brings this thing out to surface, and puts a nice big orange spot on the water so you can find this again. So these are some things. Of course, if you're also doing this and you want to know how fast you're going, I have a radar gun. It's a portable radar gun. Same thing the police use. I can track the other people out skiing or whatever and get their exact speeds. So there are a lot of toys. Now, I said smart and the useless. So there are always some things that are kind of interesting. This is a meat thermometer. You stick it in your meat for the barbecue. It's called the iGrill. And notice again, same thing, it has a blue light flashing. Why is there a blue light flashing? Well, it is a Bluetooth phone, of course. So this will go to your iPhone or your iPad, and you can go over to your device, and you can go in here, and with iGrill, it will give you your timer and your temperature. You can put in your recipes, and it will sit there and alert you. Now you can run of course, I put it on the iPad so you can see it, but of course it'll go on your iPhone as well. So you can leave this cooking and run around, and if you're watching the game and you're worried about not having any information, it'll automatically send it to you. Now, I have enough stuff here to go for probably another few minutes. So I'm going to go really quickly because I'm running out of time. This is an interesting device. This goes into the universal port in your car. You plug this into your car. It transmits all the car data. So all cars made since 1987 have one of these. You stuck it in here, and it transmits via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, depending on the model you get, to your smartphone. It tells you all the car parameters. So when you see something that says, oh, for example, the check engine light is on, all the rest, you can see this. And in fact, with the right software, you can actually go and adjust things. It's a lot of fun. But that's not all. There's some crazy things. I promise some crazy things. So here's a crazy thing. This is an iPod case. Now, you know there's ID or other things like that, applications. Well, this is a practical thing. It actually has a bottle opener on the bottom. So you can actually open your bottle. And because it is also designed for drinking, not only will you have the idea thing, but there's a breath analyzer. You see, you blow into this here, and it will tell you whether you're drunk and whether you can open it up. Now, power, of course, is something that's very important everywhere. So this is a flashlight. It's very, very light. It runs, it's a LED flashlight. But what's interesting is there are no batteries in here. This runs an ultra capacitor. And this device here, I tell you when I was in security, I was afraid about this. This is a kinetic energy generator. You stick this in your pants or your backpack, and as you move up and down, this generates electricity. It stores in the battery. It's also magnetic, which was causing some interesting problems as I was running around. But when I'm looking for applications that are fun and all the rest, there is one that is my favorite, and it's a little device that I've been having a lot of fun with here. And I'm going to move this out of the way here because This might be a problem. Take a picture of it all here. So this is an iPad application, and you can see that the clock says I have 0 time. Since I have 0 time, I better get going quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off. Well, not literally take off. I'll get off the stage. Before I do that, I'm hit the button that says take off here, and very quickly, my little camera will fly up here, and we can now have a flying camera. And as you can see, there you guys are in my flying camera. So, I'm a good pilot, but not that good. When there's a lot of downdraft or there's an air conditioning unit, sometimes I have more problems than others. But there you guys are, enjoying yourselves in my camera. Oh, by the way, it also has a downward-looking camera, so I can see what the floor looks like, so I know how to land. So I guess I better land this thing. There you go. Thank you very much.
Other rock stars of social media to us. And I also would like to repeat that we can do that after the session also, that we have an idea about, a plan even, a project together that we do 140 Berlin conference, and you do that and we try. So who knows 140 conferences? So this is good. So we keep you updated on that. And now the floor is to Jeff, and you would like to introduce our 2 panelists and the session.
Yes, I would. Well, thank you. And so we are looking at doing a 140 in Berlin in the springtime. And if you're interested in getting involved, please see Marcel or Steffi, myself, or any member, an author, and members of the team. Today's session, and then we'd like to leave time for questions if we can. It's going to be challenging. But today's session is about the humanization of brands. And just to set this up, it's my feeling that in the era of the real-time web, one of the things that's changed is that companies can no longer hide behind logos and hide behind their press statements. That, you know, anytime a company's hiring a person to represent them online and be there in real time, there's this humanization factor that just kicks in. And we're living in a world where we're making up the rules as we go along. That people are experiencing good things, not so good things, and learning. And that I, given the opportunity to be at DLD and to explore the humanization of brands, I figured it was something that was fun. I recently did a brands conference in New York City in December. We had 8.5 hours to discuss this. Here we have a half hour. And I have on stage a personal brand. I look at Joe as the representation of a personal brand. Pete's also a very personal brand. But he also, through Mashable, has sort of explored the business side of brands. And so I wanted to give the floor to both of you. Joe, maybe you can tell a little bit of the story of your personal brand, and,
sure.
And then hand it over to Pete.
Sure, okay. Well, I think I'm like the epitome of a personal brand because I'm the brand itself. I have a channel on YouTube. I've been doing it for about 4 years. And slowly I've built up an audience of around 1.7 million subscribers to my channel that come back and see my videos every time.
How large is your audience?
What's that?
How large is your audience?
Mostly 13 to 17-year-old males, but also, anywhere. It's all over the board.
And the number of people?
It's around 200 million, 230 million people that have seen.
230 million, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I put up videos Tuesdays and Thursdays, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. Sure.
And Pete, so what was the inspiration behind Mashable? And how has your involvement, how has Mashable changed over the years? And where is Mashable, and what are some of the things you've discovered through the platform you've created that takes us, how brands are changing and adapting to the web?
Sure, so background on Mashable real quick is I'm originally from a little town in Scotland, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I really was excited about this whole technology thing, and no one even had a Mac, right? I'd never seen one, it was just, I really had no connection to that world. I really wanted to get into it, so I started just blogging instead of WordPress blogs, started writing about what's going on the web, what's going on in technology, and really trying to engage with that stuff. And other people were kind of outsiders to the valley as well, and wanted to know what was going on in technology and wanted that kind of outside perspective. And obviously social networking was springing up, so that was really my interest. It's not so much, what are the kind of the technical requirements, what are the technical things going on. I was far more interested in how are people connecting online. What can you do with this stuff? Why does it matter to an ordinary person versus, you know, talking about, okay, how is this coded or whatever. So that was my kind of angle on it. And, you know, we've covered social for about 5 years now, and we're up to about 40 people. Our main office is in New York, and we have a small office in San Francisco, and that's where I'm based as well now. And we cover everything in social media, including how brands are using social media. And they're actually among our biggest audience. Very engaged, and it's really good for us because that kind of audience also shares out all our content a great deal. So it's made us doubly successful in the sense that our audience is also our distribution channel. Everyone who, you know, I mean, how many people have a Twitter here? How many people are on Twitter? Everyone. Okay, yeah. And Facebook? Yeah, so that's kind of the power, is that when your audience is basically a publisher.
So everyone's publishing with you.
Right. So if everyone has, you know, 400 friends on Facebook and they share our posts, suddenly we have magnitudes more audience. And that's really been our sweet spot versus other publishers, is to find an audience that's actually the distribution channel.
Are there any stories that come to mind that sort of stand out as far as how brands are learning the web, the social web, and how the humanization factor is kicking in, and how people look like, you know, lessons learned type of thing? Is there any particular brands that have?
So, I mean, the one that gets cited a lot is Comcast. So when Comcast started out on Twitter, there was a guy called Frank, who was the face of Comcast, and whenever you tweeted something bad about Comcast, you suddenly get Frank in your feed saying, hey, can I help you? Can I give you a call? And they were one of the early ones to really get on board, and they've been kind of praised for that one. Another one would be Ford. Got on there really early. Scott Monteith's the rep at Ford, and I think Joe, you were part of the whole Ford Fiesta movement. You could probably talk to that, but I think that's two brands, particularly with regards to Comcast, that essentially, you know, you talk about putting a face on a brand. They put the face as, you know, as the representative, and it was a very human connection. And people are far more forgiving if you're saying, oh, my Comcast isn't working, I'm really mad, I'm going to get a call center, and then Frank calls you up and says, hey, I'm Frank, how can I help you? That's a really personal experience, and people are far less angry when it's an individual.
Well, I think what that's also a reflection of is the birth of a back channel. That, you know, what's happened in the era of the social web is we now have, everybody has a way to have a backdoor conversation with somebody behind the scenes. So when Heathrow was recently shut down, a lot of people were able to go directly to certain airlines because the airlines had certain folks listening and doing direct messaging to get people out of that. In Miami, you know, Delta recently was very proactive with that. And I think one of the things we're experiencing is that certain brands are being spoken about, and if they're not listening to what's being said, certainly their competition is. And certainly we're in a period of time where I think we're going toward any company that's large enough to have a chief marketing officer should have a chief listening officer. Because, you know, there are messages that are being heard, being said, and it's not really specific to service providers or to car companies. You know, if you're in the military or you're in finance, you're in any area, some areas you have to deal with restrictions as far as information being shared, but, you know, disintermediation is what's happening these days, and there are no gatekeepers. And it's a very, I think, interesting time, but I just find it ironic that a service provider, you know, has to stand out being proactive because someone complains about them. It's like, why couldn't they be there to begin with? And, you know, Frank, I think, has said that there are now 20 people plus at Comcast that took his job, so he left and went to Citibank. And I think that we're kind of living this, but there's a personal side to this. So, Joe, when you're online, you engage, like, how do you connect with your audience as a brand?
Yeah, of course. It's funny because, especially my audience, like 13 and 17, but also 18 and 24, they see the computer where you go to make friends. You know, TV is where you just go and back and watch celebrities kind of thing. But the computer is where Facebook is where Twitter is where your buddies are. So any company that's trying to get into Twitter and Facebook, they're trying to become a little bit more friendly, trying to have a face behind what they do, kind of like Ford. You were talking about, I worked for Ford for 6 months driving the cars around.
So you drove a car for Ford for 6 months?
Yeah, for Fiesta, yeah.
And how did that feel for you? Was that something obligated or something that was fun?
No, it was great because basically all they said is that you can say anything about, they trusted their product enough and that they said that you can say anything about the car, even if it's bad.
Anything?
Anything, yeah. And, you know, a lot of companies do that. Actually, Virgin, they have a couple of friends of mine who got like free flights. And it's like you can say anything about it or don't say anything if you don't want to.
So apparently we're living in an era where you can actually cash it on your cloud.
Exactly, yeah. And brands are becoming a lot more not only friendly but also friends. You know, there's a fine line, I think, that you don't want to be like the pushy friend that's selling Avon or something like that. You know, like if you have a friend that's always coming up to you, hey, buy this knife set from me, and I get a commission. But you know, brands are starting to become a little bit more friendly, starting to become more on Facebook. You know, and talking to people, like you said, I tweeted angrily at Bank of America. I said, I'm so angry at Bank of America, I'm going to close my account. And then somebody from Bank of America tweeted at me.
Of course they do, though. That's supposed to happen. Pete, how did, you know, in the last 5 years, how has your online time gone through, increased or decreased? How many hours a day are you online these days?
Like 18.
18.
Pretty bad.
28 hours a day.
28 hours a day. So when you're not traveling, you're online all the time?
Yeah.
And do you respond? What does it take for someone to get a response from you?
It's hard to scale this thing. I mean, we get, I think it's something like 40,000 tweets about us a day.
40,000 tweets
Yeah,
about
so
us?
it's pretty hard to scale. And this is one of the challenges in terms of responding and being human is how do you respond to 40,000?
And how do you keep it real?
Right. So, I mean, it's a challenge for us and we're scaling up that part. I mean, you know, obviously I don't scale that far and it's an interesting question with regard to scale. What we do is we've taken to starting to use our actual main Twitter account for some of that feedback. We also have other Twitter accounts where our community managers, for instance, are responding to individual questions. But it's a tough one to scale that and to keep it personal.
It's the same with brands, yeah. I can imagine that, you know, a brand would be tweeting out at every single person that tweets out at that brand. It would just be cluttered, you know. So I think it's you know, you have to choose wisely who you answer. Like me especially, I have to choose wisely who I answer, you know.
Well, I mean, do you guys think that brands should have feelings? Could brands actually share emotion? If someone at a brand knows about a tragedy or something happened with one of their friends, is it okay for brand? You know, I mean, what's your take on this? Because
I think absolutely the brand should show emotion. I think that's the biggest problem with brands has been that they're so you know, faceless and emotionless that we can't connect with them. There's a great example actually with regard to kind of in the fashion world. There's a brand called Ann Taylor, and they had, I think it was a sub brand called Loft, and they'd set up this Facebook page and started posting pictures of models in their clothes, like super skinny models, and they started getting complaints and people were saying, well, this is great, but I'm not going to look that good in that. And there was kind of a big backlash around it, and what they did was to kind of humanize that brand. They had people in their office model the clothes for them and started posting the pictures of ordinary people in their office modeling the clothes, and suddenly they were human and they weren't suddenly this faceless corporation. They were suddenly someone that could understand what ordinary people want. And I think breaking down that wall and having some kind of, I think it's empathy is the word. Having that empathy, understanding, and one brand that didn't have a great deal of empathy and kind of got hit pretty hard was, well, and how many people have a positive take on BP right now? Would anyone? Negative take on BP? Anyone? Okay. So everyone's neutral on BP. That's fine, still oil. But I think they kind of got hit a little bit hard on their after the oil spill because they didn't respond and they weren't human and they weren't communicating. And I think it's that the lack of communication is the thing that hurts you more. And what actually happened with BP is that someone else stepped up and did a brilliant comedy account just making fun of BP. And I think if you break down that barrier, you can be human, it's okay to fail. I think that's cool as well. I think it's okay to make mistakes. I think that's a very human thing to do.
I think we learn more from our mistakes than our successes, and being able to connect. I mean, for me, it's about connecting with the soul, you know, and being able to actually, if you're up there and you're actually talking to somebody, you better be, you know, feel the emotions behind the words that you're sharing. Otherwise, you're being phony, and that will be out in a moment. So I think there's a, you know, I've seen people who are honest, direct, and truthful feel the moment, and it's you know, whether it's a big brand or not. But you know, one of the issues I've seen also with politics in offices. You know, a lot of companies, a lot of big companies understand that they have to have social media strategies in place, and they hire people who are really good at doing what they do. But typically, there's a barrier between the senior executives and the people who came in, and they don't necessarily have the authority or power or position to actually do everything they want to affect the brand strategy. And I found a lot of people who are feeling very frustrated because it's a generational thing. And then of course, if you're a brand and you're hiring people that, you know, do you expect Richard Branson to tweet on behalf of Virgin? No, but you expect them to have people in place that would reflect it. But what if, you somebody doesn't really know the company well, and, or they do, but are they supposed to represent them 24/7? Are they supposed to be there all the time, or are they allowed to have off time? And can Ty go out and party at DLD? I don't know. I mean, are people allowed to actually show other sides of themselves? I mean, Joe. So for you as a personal brand, I mean, where do you draw the line?
Well, it's tough figuring out where to draw the line, especially for brands, because you pick somebody kind of like Scott Monty for Ford. The Ford Twitter.
Hello, Scott.
Like they have if you go to their Twitter page, they have like 5 different people, and then they sign all their tweets. You pick 5 people who you kind of trust, and you let them run with it. Gone are the days, I think, where it's like the brand is a big monolith. Like when Facebook first started the newsfeed, and everyone hated it, they kind of put up a blog saying, "Hey, sorry, that was kind of bad. Let's work on this." Or like when YouTube now did their new front page, and literally every comment in my videos is, "Change it back. It's horrible," and blah blah blah. They're not responding to it right now. So,
well, I think what Jeff's kind of getting at is it okay to be human? Like, are we going to go on Facebook? Are we going to find photos of Joe last night getting drunk, or are we not? I mean, is that okay?
You're probably not going to find photos of me being drunk. But no, I think it's fine to do that. I think people yearn for more humanness.
But I do think that people do have barriers too, though, and I think that I mean, frankly, a lot of people got in trouble on Facebook because of privacy settings,
right.
And if they don't know how to change those privacy settings, my whole idea is, if you're worried about drunk photos, don't be in the photos.
So I think, speaking as a CEO on that one, like in terms of how much do you want to control the message, and is the we have a social media.
Yeah, how much do you want to control the message from Nashville now that you're scaling and growing?
I think the ideal scenario is that you want to have the message and communicate that message and make sure everyone's on board with it, and then tell your staff that, hey, it's okay to talk about the brand. You can respond about the brand. Here's some general guidelines. I mean, I think it's very tempting when you're writing stuff and someone leaves a negative comment to go and reply something negative, and I think we try and make people stop and think before they respond. But I think it's absolutely fine, and all our bloggers have personal blogs where they express their own opinions, and I think people understand that's not necessarily the opinions of Mashable as an organization. I think that's
you're looking at your employees as individual brand ambassadors, and do the conduct of your employees, they should be always a reflection of the company. And where do you draw the line as CEO as far as them having their own personality?
So I think it's cool to have your own personality. I think if you're talking about anything that's directly related to the content you're putting on the site, I think that's something that we like to be in those conversations. But I think we're fairly flexible, and more so than most organizations, particularly because of who we are. I mean, it would look really bad if we had a social media policy, which a lot of the news organizations have, which is essentially don't talk about us. Don't comment on any conversations, it'll make us look bad. And we see an opportunity there in terms of, we have huge followings for all our editors, and when they're writing things, they're sharing out their content to their Twitter and their Facebook. And they're ambassadors for the brand, and there's an opportunity for them to talk about the brand. So I'd much rather that people were talking about the brand than us saying, hey, don't say anything about Mashable because it might make us look bad.
I mean, another area which I've been looking at is the rise of humanity in the social web. I mean, I believe that if you look back 70 or 80 years, the modern artists really didn't put humans in the art because their belief in humanity. And I think that when you look at brands becoming human, and you look at society as a whole, I think that we're actually going through a rebirth and a reconnection as far as being able to connect as people. And I think that the new modern artist might actually reflect this in the fact that we actually are alive again, and that there's if it's a battle against the robots, I think that people will win. But Joe, when you're connecting this, I'm just curious. What did you discover yourself as a personal brand? And has it been your whole life? Is it just something recent, or how did that quickly happen?
No, it's been really recent. Actually, within the last year and a half or so, is when I went from just being a guy who just occasionally posts a video on YouTube to making it my full-time job, to being a brand, to branding out this retirement as much as I possibly can. So it's just a matter of, for me personally, picking where I want to draw the line. So I have a proposal on YouTube. And I'm not going to put up my wedding. I'm not going to live stream my wedding, So it's You know, on Facebook, I have my personal Facebook where I just add my friends that I know in real life, and then I have my fan page where I still say personal things. Hey, I'm going here and there, you know.
And people just show up. I mean, I've had some fun this past summer. I drove the Midwest, and I just was tweeting where I was going, and I traveled all 12 states and ran into 800 new friends in the process of just being there. And it's very, the serendipity is just amazing as far as how it connects. Before we run out of time, I do want to run to the audience, see if there's some questions, because we could talk here for a while. So any questions about humanization of brands in the audience today? Just raise your hand if there's a microphone. Second row.
Quick question to the relationship between the personal brand and, as you said, your fan page. If those coincide, why do you have two?
For me, personally? Well, my personal fan page is, first of all, there's the 5,000 people max that I can have, or 500 people, whatever.
Yeah,
5,000, yeah. And then my fan page is limitless. You know, I've got around 800,000 people that follow me on my fan page. So for me, you know, I didn't want to push my personal page. I wanted to push my fan page just because of the limits.
Pete, do you have two pages for yourself too?
No, I just set my Facebook to public and put up with the stalkers when they come. I think, yeah, I mean, Facebook's a challenging one because it doesn't scale on the personal pages. Like you have 800,000 Facebook fans? That's amazing. Yeah, I think it's Facebook's one of those that just limits you, so you have to, if you're going to scale beyond 5,000 people...
Well, Mark Zuckerberg believes that no one could have more than 5,000 friends, although in 2007 he lied about this because he said it will be fixed, and I don't think they're ever going to fix that.
Well, I think Facebook's got to be, and this is slightly off topic, but I think Facebook's got to be cautious not to turn into MySpace and let you have as many friends as you want and devalue the notion of a friendship, and suddenly people go onto MySpace and realize these aren't my real friends and I want to move to Facebook where there's real friendships. So I think Facebook is guarding against that friend inflation that happened on MySpace, which made it pretty much valueless. So while as brands we might not particularly like being limited to 5,000, I think for Facebook itself it's probably a good move.
Except for on the personal brands where the person is that branded, because why do you have to make 2 pages? It's kind of silly, but one more, we're going to run out of time quickly. Maybe 1 or 2 more questions from the audience? In the back, Esther?
I'd like maybe Andres would be the guy to talk about this. We're talking about...
The microphone so the broadcast people can hear.
Maybe Andreas would be the guy to talk about this. The question is, get real about the scaling and the numbers. If Delta is going to have a person responding to everybody who's unhappy with Delta, it may be the solution to the unemployment problem. But let's think about it seriously, what this really means. Because right now when we say, oh, a lot of people got responded to on Twitter, that means a small percentage of us high-end elite folks who have our iPhones and are tweeting.
Yeah, I mean, it is a problem to reply to everybody. So I think you want to pick, kind of like if you see 100 questions about something, you pick one person and you answer them. You can't reply just characters-wise, 140 characters is what you're down to, especially on Twitter. But I went to the Bank of, after I was about to close my account at Bank of America, I went to their Twitter, and they were just copy-pasting, the answers to like 30 different people, which seemed really not human. It seemed fake. And so I closed my Bank of America account and I'm with Chase. So I think you have to pick and choose your battles. I mean, you can't answer everybody.
I do believe, though, Esther, that in fact it might solve part of the unemployment problem. I do think to the extent that brands discover through back channels are able to connect with customers and drive revenue, and that having this, not such a lead service, just the knowledge that the back channel exists, will change the face of business for those people who are keyed in on it. And I think as the future goes, social, customer relation management systems will grow. They have to scale, or it will fail. And there'll be a lot of learning in the process. We have time for someone else, please. I'm sorry?
I just want to answer.
One other question, I'm going to wrap. All right, yes?
Achim Becker from Gadgethon. Not so much a question. I think what you're talking about, humanizing brands, is important. But it's very important for public companies. And what you have, especially in Europe or in Germany, you have a lot of small or medium-sized companies, even big ones, who are owner-driven. And you have a real face there. And we have one example here. You have a young man sitting here, Burda, who's the face behind Burda. And you might be surprised, he's real, he's there. And he's giving the company a face, he's giving the company trust. You can talk to him, he's responding. This is not new, it's old. What we need is more entrepreneurs and more faces and real guys behind companies, and that will solve your problem.
Thank you. And with that, guys, thank you for being part of this session. And we're going to wrap up. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe before, any closing comments, Pete?
No, I think we're all agreed that it's exciting that we can talk to brands directly. I think there's definitely concern with regard to the scalability, and I think there is concern that we're really spoiled as the first users of this system of being able to tweet and get a response from a brand. I think it'll be interesting to see how companies scale this once there are 1 million people every day asking questions directly about Comcast. I think it's going to be an interesting process to watch.
Well, I also think we should be looking at the business schools, because we're learning on the front lines, people are going to study one day. And part of what we're going through, I think, is a learning process that others will benefit from. But as you pioneer the space, sometimes we do make mistakes. But I do think the more human we can become, the better everybody ends up.
We're also bound by technology. I think you can only tweet so much at people, but as more things like Google Moderator comes out, where you can answer a large amount of people that have the same exact question, then we'll see where technology takes us.
And I happen to believe that the more virtual we become, the more we need to be face to face. And I advocate for hugs over handshakes, but that's just me.
Let's have a hug.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. This was the morning club of humanization of brands, and